Hi everyone. It's the Arsaholics. It's a Sunday night. You haven't got Mice today, only the A team. Um, but he's advised us we shouldn't make fun of him too much because he's editing, right? So he can
Is editing.
do all kinds of like editing kind of malarkey on us to make us look bad. So let's just call it there and move on. We are reflecting on another win, two wins on the bounce. This time away at Burnley, 1-0. Aaron, and let's go straight into it. I mean, how do you feel out of after two wins? And obviously the season only started, right? Like before the Norwich game, we forget everything that happened before that. So how do you feel now?
Well, you're really going into this. You're not even like bothering with small talk or anything.
No, let's just be happy. Let's just bask
Okay.
in the
No,
glory.
no, yeah. No,
We haven't conceded a goal.
we haven't
This is
seen a goal.
great
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Let's. Okay. Yeah. It was good. It was good. I watched the game through alternative means. I think that's probably all I can say in public.
But completely
Yeah.
legal. Let's
Sure. Yeah.
just
Sure.
everyone
Yeah.
don't break the law. No one.
And I overall look, I'm glad we won. And I think Myers said this before Norwich, which was ultimately it is about getting the results. And we are look, the minimum was go there and win, especially with the whole week of preparation that we had, not having any midweek football. We had to win. And we did that. And I did feel, the goal was great. I did feel, however, that, although we looked good, the players and the personnel themselves didn't look that great, but that was more of a quality issue with the players themselves rather than me feeling like, okay, this system is killing our talent, which is how I've usually felt at times previously with the football being quite rigid. I felt actually if our players were on form, or even if we had better players, then we would have comfortably won that game 3 or 4-0.
Yeah, we're touching on two of the things you said there, which I think is important. So we discussed how we've got to take advantage of the fact that we don't have Europe, and that
Yeah.
means extra time to prep, right? And if we link that to this system, this new 4-3-3 that Arteta's apparently always wanted to play, we saw it for the second, I was going to say, basically final third of the Norwich game, moving into this 4-3-3 with Partey in the kind of holding role with Odegaard and ESR flanking it. And we wondered, we talked about it, right? We talked about, would we like to see this 4-3-3 going forward? Would we like to see this kind of lineup going forward? And well, he went and did it. He literally started the game away to Burnley with, on paper, an array of attacking talent. It's that 4-3-3 that we discussed. So clearly he's using that time perhaps to embed this system. And I guess if we touch on that bit, so you feel the system didn't quite click.
No, I felt like the system itself was good, and I don't think like the alternative there would have been to play, for example, Lokonga or Maitland-Niles alongside Partey, and maybe not play Pepe or not play Saka or Smith Rowe, like drop one of those to the bench. So no, I don't think that would have been the correct move. I think the system was good. I just felt actually that on this occasion it was the players themselves who just weren't up to it. That front three, Pepe I thought was quite good and quite lively, but Aubameyang, Saka, and actually Smith Rowe as well, they just didn't have very good games. And I think if they were like on form, or even if we could have brought someone else off the bench to freshen it up, for example, that system itself would have actually yielded a comfortable win. So maybe I'm saying this after a win because you can probably take a more optimistic slant on it. But actually, yeah, I was quite pleased with the system. It's early days, but it looks like we are building towards something, which is what I want to see. So no complaints about the system whatsoever.
No, I agree with you because I watched the full game back on Sky afterwards later, and there did look, I think, in the first half, I certainly got an idea. I certainly felt that the players were comfortable with this system. And I felt that there was freedom. And I saw some really nice play, some really nice interchange. Particularly, there was like a really good opportunity, right, where the ball got pinged across to Tierney. Tierney kind of hit it through, and Pepe, I think, nearly scores. And that was a really great kind of exchange of angles. And it looked very fluid. And it was very exciting. But do you think, because I think my concern here a little bit is, okay, fine, like, it was a great free kick from Odegaard. We can talk about that free kick in a second. And outside of that free kick, we didn't have anything else that resembled, in my view, like an amazing chance, like a golden opportunity. And
that's fair, right? That's probably the glass half full way of looking at it. If we hadn't won, you could easily say that. But I think there were a good few opportunities where, had the pass been better, our players would have been through on goal, or even the free kick, for example, where I think it was Saka that got fouled. He was, I think we had a 2-on-1 with the last man or the last man. We were pretty much in on goal, and then the guy tripped him up, and we probably would have created a decent chance there. So, no, I do think once Saka did look a bit tired, for example. Smith Rowe just had a really bad game. Aubameyang was pretty anonymous. On another day, one of those 2 or 3 players turns up and does something, plays a pass, and we probably at least create 1 or 2 better chances. I think, but you're right. We are still waiting for that game where we really turn up, and we still haven't turned up yet. But I was very encouraged by what I saw yesterday versus, say, for example, the first 3 games of the season, where we didn't really look like we were going to score at any point in time. Here, we looked like if we had carried on playing, we would have eventually scored 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah. And that goal that did happen, I mean, it was a real moment of quality, wasn't it? It was excellent. But like you say, I guess in fairness, actually, the move which won the free kick in the first place was a really good move. We could have probably made something very useful out of that anyway. But it is what it is. We got a free kick, yellow card given. It was a cynical foul. And it kind of looked like, if you heard Odegaard after the game, he said words to the effect of, I think Partey wanted to take it. I don't know what planet we think Partey taking the free kicks are good at. I don't know why he's in the conversation.
I wonder how that conversation went.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, today. I mean, I in my mind, they should all know who's taking the free kicks beforehand, right? Like, why is it even a debate?
I don't know. Like, what? They're both right-footed, right?
No, well, Odegaard's left-footed, right?
Odegaard left-footed, okay.
So Odegaard's left-footed.
Yeah,
right?
Of course, he hit it with left, yeah. I guess it was one of those where maybe it was quite central. So both the left footer and the right footer might have felt they had a chance. Yeah. But no, we should keep Partey well away from those free kicks if his shooting's anything to go by.
It's actually, like, just before we get onto the free kick in itself, like, if we are taking, so it feels like if it is slightly towards the right hand side, suitable for a left footer, like Xhaka in the past has been kind of the one to take it, and he's got, he probably scores 1 a season, doesn't he? Like, and I guess you got Pepe as well, but Odegaard, he scored an absolute belter in the Europa League. It wasn't a free kick, but a belter from, I think, about 30 yards in Europa League, and this was so good as well, wasn't it? Technically superb.
It was, I mean, maybe if you've been really harsh, you felt that their wall could have done a little bit better, but the keeper had no chance. And you could watch it over and over again, and it's one of those that you can just, it's an absolute peach of a free kick.
Yeah, absolutely. And he said, right, he said, like, he had a feeling, he kind of, pushed Partey out of the way because he had a feeling that it was,
even if he doesn't have a feeling, he just still pushed Partey out of the way.
It is true. Look, I wonder if that's him on free kick duty from that side going forward. But and Odegaard more generally, like, because when I was watching the game back, it did look like, as a result of this system, there's a lot more work that he is doing defensively. But a lot of people have told me, who have watched Odegaard in the past, even prior to Arsenal, playing for Sociedad, etc., that actually he is someone who, even as a number 10, is actually a really, really hard-working player, does a lot of defensive work. I guess my question is, do you get a sense that last season we were talking about how we're crying out for this number 10. We've got a number 10, and now we've got that player who's actually also now playing in a more of a box to box where he's not really just allowed to do his special number 10 stuff. Is that, do you think we're at risk of, I guess, nullifying some, or not nullifying, but just kind of, I guess, mitigating downward slightly some of his creative qualities?
No, not really. I mean, it's quite funny. I'm sure we've talked about it on the podcast before about who this partner for Thomas Partey is going to be. I don't think any of us had actually thought Odegaard would be that guy.
Yeah,
because we assumed he'd be a 10. But I think my concern might be that, I wonder if the system of that, having the three with Odegaard, Partey, and Smith Rowe, and then that front three, I wonder if all 5 of those attacking players plus Partey can play together, and that's something that we will need to work on, because whilst we did sort of create a few half chances here and there, it didn't look like it clicked. There didn't seem to be any real chemistry between any of these players on the pitch going forward. It very much looked like Saka was doing his own thing, Smith Rowe was doing his own thing. There wasn't any real good combination play between any of the front 3 or 4 players, and that is what I worry about. But in terms of Odegaard, I think he's smart enough, and I think in football and with positional play now, the positions and the starting formation is so irrelevant in the modern game that it varies so much between game to game, who else is on the pitch, that ultimately we want someone there who can progress the ball forward, who can find a final pass, but is also prepared to run around and press when needed. And whether that person is playing in an 8 or as a 10, you need quality. And we're lucky enough now to have, at least for the first 11, just about enough quality. I'd probably like a bit more depth there, because my concern is, what if someone gets injured? How does this whole system continue to work? Because I don't think it does. But no, with Odegaard, I'm definitely not worried about that. No.
That's a really good point. I thought the same thing around this very specific system, this way of playing. You're right. If almost if one of those components goes, you could argue that, if Partey's taken out of the equation, maybe you've got Lokonga. If Saka goes out of the equation, maybe you've got Gabriel Martinelli. But otherwise, you're right. It is kind of contingent on us keeping this little kind of unit of players that we put on the pitch fit. But previously you talked about partnerships and combinations. So let's talk about defense, because actually that's something that we probably can shout home about a little bit. We've got Ramsdale hasn't conceded a goal for Arsenal. He's played 3 games. You've got the Ben White Gabriel partnership that's played twice now. It hasn't conceded a goal. Tomiyasu's played twice. He hasn't conceded a goal. This back 5, this really interesting future state back 5, which now seems like the present state back 5.
Yeah.
It feels like they're really fighting for one another, and it feels like they've got a good set of personality traits, but also complementary skill sets and qualities that is it's developing, isn't it? Something interesting is happening.
The obvious caveat, and I think me and you both acknowledge it, is the quality of the opposition hasn't been amazing, right? So it's hot, the Norwich, Burnley, and West Brom reserves attack probably isn't the most testing, where you can analyze if they're a good defense. But certainly, what I'm kind of glad is that we have a plan of what our first choice back 4 is, and back 5. Because how long has it been since we have known that this is our first choice centre back pairing, this is our first choice right back, this is our first choice left back, and this is our number 1 goalkeeper? Like, goalkeeper, we've always had number 1, fine, but I don't think since Mertesacker and Koscielny have we known, right, these are our 2 best centre backs and we're going to play them every game. And I really hope, there's going to be a day when Ben White makes a mistake. He's made a couple already. There's going to be a day where Gabriel looks a bit ropey, but Arteta just needs to stick with this now. And because the alternatives are considerably worse, but they need to figure out how to play with each other, and we absolutely have to make this 4+ goalkeeper work. So I'm glad that he just threw them all in against Norwich, because he probably had one eye on this game, thinking I need these defenders to defend well, and it's going to be a tough game at Turf Moor. So let's give them the 90 minutes at or 60 minutes at Norwich, so they get used to playing with each other. So yeah, it looked good. It looked good. I thought Ramsdale looked good. I thought Gabriel was, for me, was the man of the match. I think Ramsdale got it, but I thought Gabriel was phenomenal. Tomiyasu looked really good. Ben White, maybe a bit disappointing in terms of, he did make a mistake which could have cost us with the penalty. And actually his pass, he was in the air. I thought he was okay. I mean, it's his passing and his ball play, which he's supposed to be really good at, which I thought was a bit disappointing. And then Tierney, he was, relatively solid. I think, this whole tactic of giving him the ball in an attacking position, his crossing, pretty much all season has been very poor so far. But, if that is the biggest problem we have, then, compared to some of the problems we've had with defenders before, I'll take this all every day.
And you feel that with Tierney in particular, he's got that kind of character, that kind of determination where you feel like he will be very introspective and he will get it right.
I think, exactly. I think, for example, everyone nowadays is expecting a left back and a right back to be, Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold, right?
Yeah.
That's just simply, those two are phenomenal and they are like the outliers. Tierney is still a very, very, very good left back. So let's, as long as he's getting in those positions, he will eventually find the man in the box, providing we put men in the box. So I think he should keep doing that. I'm not worried about that. But no, stability is really important. And I really, really hope this back four can just A, stay fit, and then B, figure out a good, healthy balance to form a really solid base at this team.
Yeah, I agree, because there were times during the game where actually we were under siege a little bit, weren't we? It wasn't really a smooth sailing. It wasn't necessarily that the 1-0 was a very controlled victory necessarily. I think the stats read 18 shots to Burnley and I think us 13. And I think watching the game over, it certainly wasn't a case where I feel Burnley dominated per se. Like, I'm not saying that was the case, but it was certainly a case where our boys had to remain pretty resilient. And if we go to, I guess, the key moment in the second half from any kind of angle, given there was no actual goals in the second half, was that penalty incident, right? What that wasn't given in the end. So there was this, obviously the back pass comes from Ben White, and I don't think necessarily we should be using this as an excuse, but it has been fairly well documented that Burnley, very specifically when playing teams like Arsenal, and they did this against us, typically tried to keep the pitch quite dry, so the ball isn't going to kind of move very easily. And it felt like, this was a case where Ben White just underhit a very kind of a normal pass, and maybe you could blame the grass a little bit, but to be honest, it happened at a point in the game where you probably should have got used to the pace of the pitch. So
yeah, exactly. Fair enough. The pitch, it wasn't just his passing. There were a good 4 or 5 times where we could have played someone in and we just got the pass completely wrong. So yes, it seems like it was a factor, and a few people did mention it. I think Arteta mentioned it. Ben White might have mentioned it. Someone else mentioned it as well. But either way, at this level, you don't do that. There's no excuses. You don't do that.
Yeah, and Ramsdale really comes to the rescue, doesn't it? Because in the end, it's actually a phenomenal tackle.
Yes, it was a phenomenal tackle, but I'm still very, very surprised it got overturned. I didn't know you were allowed to overturn decisions in favour of Arsenal. I can't remember the last time we got a VAR overturn in our favour. But
yeah, you're completely right, and obviously Twitter was all over that when it happened, right?
But I was very surprised because VAR has improved considerably over the last year or so, but I was always under the impression that you had to be very certain that it wasn't a penalty. And you could, there were, it was ambiguous. I know he got most of the ball, but, you've seen those penalties given as well. And that was what I was worried about.
Yeah, like I remember Gary Lineker even tweeted, I think at the time, I think he softened up by the time Match of the Day came, but I think on the time when he retweeted at the time and he sort of said, well, it's not a clear and obvious error. Yeah. Like, so, to be overturned. I guess my argument with that is that in that situation, when you're the goalkeeper, it's impossible to touch the ball almost without the player then going over. If you think about the angles, it's impossible.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to give the goalkeeper has to have a chance to get the ball. And the ball was there to be won, and he won it.
Exactly.
Which is why the player is going to clatter into the man regardless.
Exactly.
It's just if it's done in a way where he's won the ball first, then I think it should be okay, as long as he doesn't go in maliciously, which he didn't.
And nicely, that I imagine that's exactly what the ref said. The ref said, "Okay, I've given this based on the assumption that he did not touch the ball at all."
Yeah,
and I've been told to go check the monitor. I've checked the monitor; he's clearly touched the ball. That's it.
It's fine. Yeah, exactly.
So it's very nice to see it very logically working that way. Yeah. And obviously, us being the beneficiaries, it was hilarious seeing Sean Dyche on the touchline looking so bemused. Yeah. And I'm like, what? I was like, what are you saying?
He didn't know you could overturn penalties against Arsenal either. He's like, yeah.
It was lovely. And look, I'm sure there's going to be stuff that goes against us at another point in the season. I suppose we've got to remember that sometimes, we are still going to be Arsenal, and we're still, as Arsenal fans, going to feel like it's all against us all the time. But, then as the game went on, I don't really recall us having any really good chances, but the guys seemed to feel, be quite resilient. It seemed like, I think in total, there are about 40 odd balls that came into the box. I think 9 of them, Burnley players made contact with, and 6 of them transpired into attempts at goal. And I think on average, as percentages go in terms of Burnley games, actually that's quite good as an opposition in terms of being able to restrict them to that. And so what do you think about Ramsdale though? Because as much as we can talk about the defense having a good game and resilience, like you say, Ramsdale got man of the match, which usually means that the goalkeeper had to do a hell of a lot. What were you impressed about?
I think the first thing is, when we praise Ramsdale, I don't think this is a massive criticism of Leno as such, but what I was impressed with was just his energy. There was a moment, and I don't know if this was on Match Today because I didn't watch it, but where Tomiyasu was, trying to duel for the ball pretty much on the goal, on the kind of touchline, and then he lost, but then he won, and he got bullied a bit, and then he eventually won the ball back. I think he put it out for a corner. And in an ideal world, you probably expect your right back to do a bit better and be a bit stronger. But immediately Ramsdale was over there and just gave him a pat on the back, motivated him, said, "Don't worry, just get on with it. And well done for dealing with it eventually." And coming there, I don't think Leno would have done that. And there was a few times where you could audibly hear Ramsdale shouting above the crowd noise. And again, I don't think Leno would have done that. So, I think Leno is probably still a better shot stopper than Ramsdale. But, there is this other quality of goalkeeping, which is, do you have the presence? Are you known? And are you willing to get involved when, your team are under the cosh by coming out for a couple of crosses? And even if you don't get there, come out. And if you don't win the ball, make sure that the defender doesn't get the ball. And that was what I really liked about him. He definitely had a presence. Now, I'm not getting carried away because I've actually watched Ramsdale for quite a while. When he moved to Sheffield United in his first season, he was terrible. He made a lot of mistakes in that first half of the season. So he does still have this tendency to be quite inconsistent, and so let's hope he's gotten over that and learned from that, and he's matured past that. But I'm not getting carried away, but it's still very exciting.
Yeah, I find him to be a very assertive goalkeeper.
Yes,
and also one thing, as you know, I've been a big advocate of Leno. I really like Leno. I still really like him. But if I could, it feels like Leno was a keeper who he's going out there, and when he's playing for Arsenal, he's kind of going, I want to show everyone I'm a really good goalkeeper. But Ramsdale, I get the impression Ramsdale is there going, this is the greatest job in the world. Like, I have got my dream job. I'm so happy. Yeah. And every game he's playing it like well, thus far, he's playing it like he's a fan who's almost like won a competition, and this could be his last game.
He just reminds me of like, I don't know if it's the real person I ever worked with. It reminds me of like someone who's on work experience.
Yeah.
like he's just like his first. He's he's got this like big amazing work experience job, and he's like, wow, this is awesome. But he's also very good at the same time.
Yeah.
And he's really working and fighting. And what I'd be really interested to see, and we'll probably talk about this in a minute, but when Leno does get a game, is he any different because he's got a bit of pressure? Because there was a period where we had Leno as number one and Runarsson as number two. Leno could have literally turned around and kicked the ball into his own net, and he would have been out there the next game. There was no way Leno was getting dropped, regardless of what he did. So, and that's not his fault. He had no competition. So, let's see how Leno responds. But I'm glad there is a bit of competition now for that number one jersey.
Yeah, and competition as well, and in a way that I think is quite interesting, actually, because I feel Ramsdale's still at that age where if you told him, hey, mate, we're going to bring Leno back in, maybe if there's any concerns with his performance or whatever, I feel he's still at that young age where he'd be able to take it. He's not going to be up in arms. He's not going to be like, this is super important for my career right now that I play every single game. So in that way, that might help us a little bit. But the way that he's going, he's really playing like he's Arsenal's number one.
Yeah, I agree with that. But ultimately, I would love to have known what the discussion was with Leno over the summer, where the club have said, right, we need to go and spend 25 million on a goalkeeper now. And why they did that. Was it because Leno wasn't deemed to be good enough, or did they think he wasn't committed enough because there were contract issues, or did they genuinely see something in Ramsdale that said we need to go and get this guy now, because if we don't, we're losing out on a top potential goalkeeper. And it's probably a combination of all of them, but because if the club have actually said, no, we think this guy is better than Leno now, then we shouldn't drop him, because he's going to be our number one for hopefully, the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Well, like an interesting possibility is that actually, even when Martinez and Leno were almost battling it out, what if even Arteta and Edu at that time basically said, really, I don't think either of these goalkeepers are who we want for the future? Like, what if they genuinely, even at that point, knew that they wanted to get a different profile of goalkeeper?
Yeah, I mean, I find that unlikely, because I just don't give anyone enough credit in the club to have that much forward like foresight and to think that far ahead. But it's possible. Like, clearly we saw a need to go out and spend big on a goalkeeper, where we were all talking in the start of the summer saying we need to go and get a number two goalkeeper. None of us really considered Leno being dropped for a better one.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that situation has manifested itself.
No, agree. And just kind of moving on to another important player, the 12th man, the fans.
Yes.
Right. Again, away support, outstanding. Just absolutely phenomenal. And you can tell it's symbiotic relationship that's forming, right? Like, you've got the players who feel like, for whatever reason, something seems to have changed. Where I feel like the players have gone, fans are really, really important, and we really, really need them, and we really want to play for them, and they're giving off this vibe, this energy that they love the fans. And the fans are then vibing off that. And it's kind of, it's this great little relationship. And you saw at the end of this game, again, like the players' camaraderie within themselves, then feeding through and going to the fans and, throwing shirts, etc. And I know that might sound really arbitrary, and it probably sounds like these are things that have happened through the years, but it does feel like there's some kind of growth forming. It's almost like, do you know what I mean? Everyone's growing together.
Yeah, and I think at least with a large percentage of the match going support, both home and away, people have really bought into this rebuild. And they know that this is a young team. there are going to be hiccups, but ultimately we are doing something with a bit of purpose now, rather than buying random players on short-term contracts that we hope can deliver now. And when they don't, we're just stuck with them. This is something that should be getting better every week. And the question is, if it becomes clear it's not getting better, what do we do? But let's hope that situation never happens. But people are buying into that. And, like you said, the Norwich game felt like a reset. So far, it's 2 wins out of 2. The big test is coming up, but I think everyone's really on board. And, fair play to the away fans. I saw some tweets about how like trains on the way back got cancelled and things like that. And, I hate crowded trains. Like, and it just sounds like such an ordeal, but, fair play to them navigating public transport, navigating Burnley, like going up to Burnley itself is an ordeal. And there was some crowd trouble and, hopefully no one got involved in anything too serious. And it was just a friendly scrap.
I think so, to be honest. Like, I know that some of the media outlets have reported on it. It doesn't sound like it was anything too bad.
Yeah.
But, anyway, focusing on the football, I think, Spurs have got battered by Chelsea today. We've got Spurs next, but we're not going to talk about that today because we're going to record again after the AFC Wimbledon game. So Let's talk about what we think this all means then. But what we have got is we've got a game on Wednesday against AFC Wimbledon in the Carabao Cup, a former team of Aaron Ramsdale's, And it's a team that I know pretty well, right? Like, because AFC Wimbledon, so I do live in Southwest London, and where AFC Wimbledon play is at where they had been playing. Now they've got their new stadium, but where they have been playing for the last however many years is Kingsmeadow, which is just kind of down the road from me. And I've been to a number of games at Kingsmeadow, and I've even followed AFC away to Dover once. In a 0-0. Yeah.
All right.
I know, mate. So I'm proper football fan, you see. And what I would say is it's a completely different style of football. It's exactly. And sometimes actually when I watched Aaron Ramsdale, I sort of think some of that kind of ability to come out and claim balls and just get really scrappy. I'm sure he learned a lot of that from those times. But this being said, like, AFC Wimbledon have been a team that have been this fantastic almost movie script in some ways, like the MK Don stuff happened, they started again, and now they're kind of, they're progressing through. But let's not beat around the bush. We should absolutely hammer AFC Wimbledon at home on Wednesday. Now you're not going to the game, sadly.
No.
But are you looking forward to it? And in terms of, particularly, this gives us an opportunity to sometimes see some of the lesser, not lesser known players, but not all the first teamers.
Yeah, I think there seems to be this idea that we're going to play a lot of really young players. I don't actually think we will. I think it will be a mix of kind of basically the players that were on the bench on Saturday, plus maybe one or two of the players like the senior under 23s, because ultimately this is now our third competition, because we're only in 3. And with the FA Cup not really kicking off until January, this is it, right? So it's league and then it's League Cup. So I think I think what we'll see is quite a strong team. I think we'll see the likes of whoever's fit in terms of those who played on the bench. I don't know if Holding and Maria fit, but they will probably play.
So I think Holding may still be out.
Okay.
But you're right about Marie. Do you think Leno will play?
Yeah, I think Leno will play.
Do you think that he would, I'd say, take that well? In a way, it doesn't really matter. He's a professional and needs to play. But do you think that might be difficult for his pride to take?
Yeah, it will be, but hopefully it motivates him to put in a performance. And if he does, and he improves and he can, be better than Ramsdale, then he'll be back in the squad. That's why you have two goalkeepers, for them to fight with each other. Not physically, but in terms of performance. So yeah, I think Leno will play. I think Tavares will play. I think Chambers will play. I think Maitland-Niles might play. I think Lokonga will play. We'll give. So yeah, I don't. I've seen shouts calls for players like Patino and like even Balogun. I don't know if Balogun will play. I think Eddie, if he's back, will get some minutes, and Lacazette will play. Martinelli will play. So yeah, I think it'll be there's a chance that the squad, the average age of the players in our League Cup could be older than the average age of our Premier League team.
That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good point. And I completely agree with you, because we're not in Europe. This is the game where we're going to have to get Laka minutes and Martinelli time as well, and Maitland-Niles, etc. Pablo Mari, I completely agree with that. But here's the problem. Say we play against AFC Wimbledon and any of these players put in a big performance. Do you think that should factor into the thinking for the North London derby, or do you think at the end of the day this game's a free hit?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's it's a free hit that we have to win, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But, it's a chance to get those fringe players some minutes, help them find form, and ultimately, it could get to Sunday. It could be 0-0. Aubameyang could get injured, or Saka could get injured, or something. God forbid, something that results in one of them needing to come on, and we need them in form, because look, if Saka does continue to not really find his form, then we need alternatives to come in, and that's where you need these players who are on the bench to be motivated, because they know that if there's an injury or someone doesn't perform consistently, they will come in, and like Leno, Lacazette should be thinking, well, if Aubameyang doesn't score, I might get a run in. Martinelli should be thinking the same about his position. And there are places to be won. I think that I find it unlikely that someone like Saka would get dropped, or someone like Odegaard would get dropped. But where there is competition, they should feel like there's an opportunity for them to start if they play well.
Yeah, that's the one that the Saka situation is the only one that I can see that if Martinelli, for example, puts in a really good performance against AFC Wimbledon, and again, I'm not sure how much you can read into that, but if he looks really fit, looks really sharp, I wonder whether they'll look at Saka in training and just wonder whether he needs a rest, because it feels like he has been a little bit jaded.
Yeah, so I don't think he'll play on Wednesday, but ultimately he's getting a week's rest in between games now. So
yeah,
how much rest does he want?
True.
I don't think it's a case. I know he's. I think he was he injured, or he came back late, and then So I think it's just a case of hopefully he just needs some time to find form. Didn't get a proper preseason, so he just needs a bit of time to warm up. But I'm confident that he will find form eventually.
Well, people said this in World Cup 98, I think. Apparently Bergkamp, I don't remember this well enough, but I've seen people commented on it about when Bergkamp came back from the World Cup, he seemed pretty tired, and it took a little while to get the best version of Bergkamp. And so even the best players, I feel like when you've got a packed schedule, when you've been playing a tournament, that longer term fatigue is there. But I guess maybe now they're a lot better with sports science, so they know a lot more about fitness. So maybe they will understand kind of if Saka really, really is jaded physically. But I guess that's the mental side that's hard to figure out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be like we said, the grass was really long, and maybe that just meant every touch he took was off, and he just had a bad game. So let's see. Spurs is the big one, and we'll learn a lot about this team on Sunday. But I think it's probably a bit too early to draw any kind of massive conclusions just yet.
Yeah, agreed. And in normal circumstances, I may be saying, well, maybe asking you the question right now, how important do you think this Carabao Cup game is? But it's almost irrelevant, because at the end of the day, it's AFC Wimbledon at home. We need to beat them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So maybe that question we can ask, after the next round, touch wood, for no upset. But, you talked about the fact that we might not see that many young players. And to that, I agree with that point. But it's interesting, right? Today, Arsenal under 23s played Chelsea under 23s away. ironically, it must have been at Kingsmeadow because that's where Chelsea under 23 play. So that's a kind of very, very weird coincidence. So for anyone that didn't know what happened in that game, Arsenal won 6-1, 6-1 away at Chelsea. Arsenal had 10 men for the majority of the game. Omar Rekik got sent off, I think, in the 30 odd minutes for, I think it's it wasn't 2 yellow cards. So it was denying a goal scoring opportunity. Anyway, despite getting a man sent off in the 30 odd minute, Arsenal still win 6-1. Chelsea's one goal was in the 90 plus minute. Yeah. Now, that is a battering to a side who have a very well-revered academy right now, and have done for the last few years. So there's a couple of things to touch on there more broadly, but I think, if we actually just think about that as a precursor to a Carabao Cup game where, sometimes we do see young players. Today's game, there was a hat-trick from Biereth, the striker that we signed from Fulham over the summer. Balogun scored twice. And I forget the scorer of the final goal. I think it's Salah-Din, I think. Yes. But anyway, Balogun, I've seen the highlights of this game. Balogun was absolutely outstanding. He was so good. And it was the thing that struck me about watching these highlights was actually, it wasn't necessarily that Arsenal dominated the game. It was that the quality of what we did was really impressive. So our finishing was excellent. Balogun's, I think he got at least one assist, but his kind of ability, his just level was immense. Patino hit a fantastic reverse pass, I think, for one of Balogun's goals. I think Balogun's second goal. I mean, it's impressive. And so I guess specifically with regards to Wednesday, is that Balogun, is that Biereth, is that Patino saying, you've got to at least have me on the bench?
Yeah, I think they deserve time on the bench. I just think, it's so easy to draw conclusions from these under 21, under 23 games sometimes. But ultimately, a lot of these kids are 18, 19 years old. And, the step up from under youth team football, academy football to Premier League football is huge. And so many players just don't make it. I still remember thinking Chuba Akpom was, the next Messi.
Yeah, I mean, he scored so many goals at that level, didn't he? Yeah, at the under 23 level. Yeah,
and look, I think there's a tendency to think and hope that every player is going to be a Saka or a Smith Rowe when those players are so rare. And actually, Smith Rowe benefited because he went on loan to Huddersfield, right, for a season. And a lot of these players haven't had that loan where they're getting minutes. So yeah, they should get a few games, maybe a couple of appearances off the bench, and I hope they do. That'll be nice for them. But let's not start elevating these players to becoming anywhere near first team status, because I don't think it does them any good. And they need time to develop, and ultimately we will be left with far better, more experienced players when they do come into this squad, rather than rushing them through. And given the lack of games and the lack of European football that we have this season, there's absolutely no need we don't need a squad of more than 15, 16 players this season.
No, I agree with you. But if we look holistically at the talent pool, so you're right. Not everyone's going to grow up to be a great player, and it's very hard sometimes to judge. You're right. These are situations where we've often got 17, 18-year-olds playing against other 17, 18-year-olds. It's not always great to understand. But, and I know that some of these players have been with the club for many years, but we're in a situation where our first team is generally the team that we generally put out in the Premier League at the moment is generally the youngest team that any Premier League is putting out on that week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's awesome. I love that. Yeah.
Which is fantastic, right? We've had Bukayo Saka, who became a star for England over the Euros. We've got people like ESR who are really, really establishing themselves as top players who've come through this academy. We've got people like Aziz who are out on loan. We've got Reece Nelson who's out on loan. We've got Ballard who's out on loan, etc. So where I'm going with this, we've got this bunch of young players who are already in the first team. We've got other young players who are out on loan, and we've got a team of under 23s who are able to still go to someone like Chelsea and score 6 goals and beat Man United last week as well. Now, I think, do we need to take a second to just really applaud Per Mertesacker for this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our academy over the last 5-6 years has almost bailed us out. Can you imagine where we'd be without Saka and Smith Rowe coming through the academy right now? And that to find 2 players like that would have cost us 100 million quid. It saved us 100 million quid. And if we can get even one more, like one Saka every 2 years, one Smith Rowe every 2 years, that's saving us 40-50 million quid a season. How awesome would it be to just be able to just continue to bring through these youngsters because they're just all so good and that they can play in Premier League level football and make that transition really quickly. It's still rare. I don't think we should expect that. But if some of these kids do come through and they are that good, we should absolutely give them the chance. And I would love it if we did. And that's almost one of the reasons why when people say, oh, we should get a billionaire to take over the club, that will be, it'll be fun in its own ways, but it would mean, Man City don't really do that. Chelsea don't do that, but it would be really cool if we could continue to do this as we go and hopefully become a better club.
Well, I agree with you because but it's not just, is it? It's not just producing players that play in your team and then that's fantastic because you have that connection with the fans and all that kind of stuff. It's not just that. It's the fact that if you can generate multiple, you can sell them, you can make money that can fund you to strengthen areas of your squad that you need to. Now, again, if we look at Chelsea, yes, they've got Abramovich and he's supported them financially. That's fine, but they still sell frequently academy players for really good money, right? Yes. And they do it. You talk to their fans are often kind of disappointed when they sell some of these players, but they recognize that at the end of the day, they're not all going to make it. And hey, what if we make £50 million a window for it? Exactly. And so again, I think what we'll probably end up seeing as Arsenal fans is more Willock situations. So I think when we sell Willock this summer, I think that was a lot of fans like, oh God, we're selling a Haaland graduate and he's good and this is devastating and this is whatever. But maybe actually we need to get used to the fact that we've got a large talent pool and we're going to have to sell some of these guys, and that's okay. And that's part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly. I really hope Willock does well, and I hope he goes on to achieve great things. But ultimately, it's a job well done for our academy, and we should be pleased with that.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. All right. Well, look, I think we'll wrap up there, mate, because we're going to do another episode this week where we'll talk a bit about what happened against Wimbledon, but really prequel the massive North London derby on Sunday, which I already cannot wait for. So we'll leave it at that. Mize will probably be at the next episode. So apologies, everyone. You're going to have him, but cool. Predictions for what? For the AFC game. It's hard. It's hard, isn't it? Because I mean, you don't know what to. All right, I'm going to go with 4-0 Arsenal.
Okay, I was going to say 3-0.
Okay, 4-0, 3-0. All right,
cool.
Nice one. All right, cool. All right, well, everyone, enjoy the rest of your weeks, and we will talk to you later on the week. Bye-bye.
Great. See you. Bye.